everybody. This is Alex from 6 and welcome to Squires Duty, a new show where I'm going to be going through how I am taking my Imperial Knights from an ally to my other Imperial forces to a standalone army in their new Codex. Or not. We don't have a Codex. We have instead got a surprise index update. Now, I'm going to go through instead today what's changed, what's new, how do we go into this with these changes but no detachments, no other bonuses, and how does this affect us relative to, say, Chaos Knights? Now, overall, we have had the same kind of treatment to the chassis of our knights. Our stat lines have had a toughness reduction, but a wound increase across the board. Some of these changes, I think, probably are going to be quite useful for us. We're going to be able to, of course, now with these changes, field more knights because they gave us a points decrease and a significant set of point decreases as well. This really means that suddenly we can actually put 5 big knights on the table and have a few more points left, or we get some of these kind of big knights and still keep our 7-8 Armiger chassis that we enjoyed previously. Now, today, I think we're going to go through this show and kind of look at each of the chassis and some of the changes in more detail, and how I think that actually some of the biggest changes have been to the extremes, to kind of our big and our little. So, of course, probably the most noticeable change here is going to be to our Armigers, dropping from toughness 10 to toughness 9, and of course an objective control drop of 25% down to 6 from 8. This is a massive change. This is so much less tough than we were, and to boot for this, our Armigers did not get any points decreases to go alongside their reduced toughness. Our outputs are pretty much the same. None of our datasheet abilities, none of the weapons got a change, except here on the Armigers again. The Warglaive's thermal spear has dropped from 24 to 18 inches. This again lines up with our Chaos Knight's Demon Breath spears, and actually is probably one of the biggest changes in the book. You now cannot come in from reserves and get melter range. You're 25% further away. You have to get so much closer to kind of guarantee that big melter 4 damage. So where do I think this leaves Armigers? I think you're still actually, after all this, taking plenty of them. I think you're still looking to put at least 4, maybe even 5 into a list, unless you are skewing really hard into the bigger knights. Well, of course, one of the things that us as Imperial Knights get in our Noble Lance detachment is a Feel No Pain. So that increase in wounds actually then goes even further and reduces our susceptibility to things like mortal wounds and small arms fire. But speaking of reduced durability, the Dominus class has been hit so hard. We've lost a toughness. We only gain 4 wounds. But probably the biggest loss, and why I don't think you will see them on the table at all, is the fact that they have got a 3+ save now instead of a 2. Their survivability has been decimated, and they haven't had any increase in damage. They are still incredibly slow, and now, despite coming in at under 400 points, I just don't see that they're going to bring you anything on the tabletop. Now, onto some of the winners of our change, I think, with this index, is our Questoris and some of the Forge World changes. The Questoris chassis went from toughness 12 to 11 and gained 4 wounds as well, up now to 26. And these gained significant point drops. The Warden Crusader chassis are down over 80 points. Canis Rex has come down 70 points. And even something like the Errants, the Gallant, the Paladin are all down at least 35 and up to 60 points. This means that you probably get an additional Questoris in your list. If you were running, say, 2 before, you can definitely now move that up to 3. The Cerastus Knights gained the 3 wounds up to 28 and then dropped the toughness, and your big Porphyrians, your Acastus class, had no change. But you weren't going to see them anyway, so don't worry about it. Now, I don't think that the toughness 12 to toughness 11 breakpoint on a Questoris chassis is as significant as that on the Armiger. Again, by the time you were bringing your Questoris Knights out, you often expected your enemy to have either had its anti-tank weaponry dealt with by your other forces in your list, or it was there to bring all that weaponry out so that the rest of your army could take it out for the rest of your army, your knights, to step forwards with impunity. Again, in Noble Lance, the extra wounds go even further, and none of the weapons here that I could see got a change. So something like the Errant with the Thermal Spear still has a 24-inch range and gets great use out of something like Mysterious Guardian. The Cerastus Knights saw some big decrease in points to something like the Lancer, but which is probably still the one that you would take if you were going for it. That 4 have been done all the time. Arguably now more important with this toughness drop. So we've seen what's still in the Codex. We've still got, I would say, a lot of our good units. I think the playstyle hasn't changed too much, but let's see where next. What's not included now is the Knight Defender. So, of course, they haven't released the model yet, but we didn't get to see what they were doing with it, and so, of course, we know that is coming, but it would have been nice to, say, get that as something conciliatory instead of this Codex. Notably, I didn't find the points for Unyielding Paragon on my downloaded copy of the update. They might add that later, but it's something to note that it might have been purposefully left out. Now, because we've been given an index, there is, of course, the question, how long will we wait for this Codex? It already feels like there's been a delay, and does this mean that actually we could have another 3 or even 6 months before changes? But hopefully that we can mitigate that with understanding, going into that with an understanding entirely of how the stat line change has actually affected the book. So what do I think the best army will be? I still think it's going to be viable. We've been having good success previously, and I think that the extra knight or 2 on the table will probably overall offset that loss to each individual model's toughness. And maybe we drop a few percentage points if you look at our win rate, but certainly across the mid-tables, a lot of armies still don't want to face a big wall of wounds with high toughness still associated with it. Is there going to be a playstyle change? I do think so. I don't think that the single big knight, lots of little, is going to remain. I do think that we're going to go to a minimum of 2, but probably running 3 big knights. And I do still think that the choice of agents is going to be worthwhile in your list. You still have the amazing Squires duty, and so being able to add your sisters for the strip cover, the cheap, sticky, the extra low-cost units, I don't think we're going to want to miss out on that. The Agent's book is very kind to us. But I do think that you could probably now be significantly more aggressive with throwing out a big knight instead of trying to do a trade with your little knight. This is, of course, also down to that OC drop. You need to have killed more to hold the point. The Questoris have the additional mobility to get through the walls with the super heavy walker. But enough babbling. What do I think of a list? So this is probably an early list concept that I am going to take, or certainly try and dabble with. I think Canis Rex with his points drop is still incredibly powerful. His damage has not dropped. His ability is still the same. He's still hitting on 2s with sustained 5s. I think an Errant with a Mysterious Guardian suddenly is a great option with this points drop to kind of carry some of your anti-tank capabilities, and the option to kind of still have it behind the wall and throw out an advance and shoot onto any of the Armigers is still really powerful. Another incredibly powerful ability, particularly with additional wounds now, is the Knight Warden. He came down a whopping 85 points. And putting Mythic Hero on here so that you can get two of your kind of fewer Armigers to be -1 damage, and the extra wounds I think that's going to be a mainstay now. I think he has great options. The plethora now in the meta of kind of marine stat lines means that Gatling gun with and ignores cover from some sisters can pick up a unit with ease. But that with the 3 big knights, I think if you were then adding your sisters, the immolator to kind of carry them, to split them up, suddenly you only really have the points for 4 kind of chassis. So I've gone 2 Warglaives, 2 Helverins, and stuck a Calexis in. I do think that you still want the range of the Helverin. The anti-fly 2 is very powerful, and the Warglaives do still just get a job done of pushing forwards, getting into Melter, particularly off a rapid ingress now. That still is a good play for it. And whilst I would have really liked a Calidus, I ended up 5 points short. So for that, so instead dropped a Calexis, which I still think is a useful option. Now, you can of course go for something without the agents. I made a list there where it was still the same kind of top 3 knights with Canis, and Errant, and a Warden. But instead I went for 4 Warglaives, 2 Helverins, and snuck a little Knight Moirax in. They've got the Siege Claw, which has an anti-infantry 2 Flamer, and is kind of alongside the line of the Slaughter Claw from the Chaos Knights book. That extra damage really would be quite helpful, I think, say into a mirror or into clearing a light vehicle off. So there we go. This is some of my thoughts on the Imperial Knights Index. Let me know what you think, and if you like our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment on these videos. Join our active Discord where we have over 800 members. And if you are able to and really like our content, you can become a YouTube member. This unlocks coaching classes, and we are just now figuring out what next to do for our masterclasses. So please come and join us, and I'll see you in the next video.